Chapter section 8.5, applying integer operations. This is the last section for the chapter. Working example number 1, use the order of operations. Now, just as a reminder, order of operations we frequently call BEDMAS. And we've got our order of operations going on here. So step 1 is your brackets, which is what this B stands for. That is step 1. Multiply and divide in order from left to right. Now, in BEDMAS, we've got this one here called exponents, which you will deal with in grade 9. So we just sort of skip that for now. So step 2 is, again, like I said, multiplying and dividing. Let's get the colors right. So dividing and multiplying are done at the same time from left to right. And so that's divide or multiply. And then step 3 is adding and subtracting, done at the same time, again, from left to right. So add and subtract. So that's your BEDMAS. Make sure you memorize this, it's important. So let's take a look at example A. Calculate negative 15 divided by negative 3, subtract positive 4, multiply by negative 2. So you tend to do one operation at a time and then rewrite the entire line below it after you've done the one item. So there are no brackets. Now, let me draw a point to this. There are brackets here. Technically, I think these are called parentheses. They are going around a number just to make sure that you're aware that this is a negative 15 and not a subtract 15. There are actually no operations like add, subtract, multiply, or divide inside this. So it doesn't count as far as BEDMAS goes. The brackets part is if you have an operation to do within the brackets. So, and exponents we're not dealing with here, so we're looking at multiplying and dividing from left to right. So when we look at this equation, or this division is done first. It's the first thing that we find. What I like to do is go through and assess them right off the top before I do any calculations. So I know that there are no brackets, there's no exponents. Multiply and divide come first from left to right. So that one is going to be number 1. The multiply is going to be done second. And then that leaves subtraction to be done third. I like to number them first so that I have a plan before I get started. And then I can refer back to that as I'm going. So step 1 is doing this division. Negative 15 divided by negative 3. Well, 15 divided by 3 is 5. Negative divided by negative is going to give you a positive answer. So it's positive 5. So we write down the positive 5 instead of the negative 15 divided by negative 3. Then we write the rest of this down. Subtract positive 4 times negative 2. So you just bring everything down. Then next up was the multiply. So we'll ignore the subtraction for the moment. Positive 4 times negative 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Positive times a negative gives you a negative. So this is going to be a negative 8. Again, bring down the rest of your equation. So plus 5 minus. This turns into a negative 8. Then lastly, third step was doing the subtraction. So when you're subtracting using positive and negative integers, you can add the opposite. That's what subtraction means. It means to add the opposite. So what we're doing here is instead of subtraction, we're going to add. And because this is negative, the opposite is positive 8. So plus 5, and then add the opposite, plus positive 8. Well, 5 plus 8, that's easy. That's 13. So 13 is our answer. And it is positive as shown here. So that's one example. Let's have another look at another example. Part B, calculate negative 6, subtract negative 9, plus negative 14 divided by plus 2. No brackets to deal with, no exponents to deal with. Multiply and divide is done first. Let's see, subtract, add, divide. So that's going to be done first. Then we do adding and subtracting left to right, so that means this subtraction is done second, and then this adding is done third. So let's do that. First up is the negative 14 divided by positive 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. Negative divided by positive, going to give you a negative 7. Bring down the rest of your line. So negative 6 minus negative 9 plus, then this piece becomes the negative 7. So next up we said was do the subtraction, so let's do that. Negative 6 plus negative 9. So negative 6 plus 9 is going to give you a plus 3, positive 3. Bring down the rest of your line, so the negative 7 carries down. And then we're left with just the adding, so 3 plus negative 7 gives you a negative 4. And that's your answer. Now, if this throws you for a bit of a loop, you can reverse this. You can say, well, we can subtract the opposite as well, instead of adding the opposite. So this would be 3 minus positive 7. 3 minus 7. Well, on the number line, you can probably figure that out. If you start at 3 and you subtract 7 and you're going to the left 7 spots, that'll take you to your negative 4. All right, one more example here. Example C, calculate negative 8 plus negative 2 times. Now here's some brackets. 4 plus negative 1 inside brackets. Now also note, we're using square brackets here because we've already got the curved parentheses to indicate our negative numbers. So it'll be less confusing if you use square when you're actually dealing with operations. So brackets are going to be done first, and inside the brackets we've got this adding. So we're going to say that that's done first. Then multiplying and dividing left to right, so that means this multiplying is going to be done next. And then that leaves us with adding this third step. So brackets, 4 plus negative 1. That's the same as 4 minus 1, which is just positive 3. Next, and bring the rest of it down. Next step was the multiply, so let's do that. Negative 2 times 3. Well, 2 times 3 is 6. Negative times a positive is going to give you a negative answer. So it's negative 6. And then lastly, the addition. So bring it down, negative 8 plus this negative 6 that we got above. Negative 8 plus negative 6 is going to give you negative 14. Next up is a show you know, give it a go.